How to Tame Your Ego, NOUR ADRA, Embassy Expert, Bodyguard, Teacher. Are you aware of your surroundings? Do you know how to protect yourself in case of actual danger? In this episode, my international guest, NOUR ADRA, discusses the importance of situational awareness and self-defense for keeping you and our loved ones safe. NOUR, founder of Charlie Mike Concepts, emphasizes the need to shorten the gap between stimulus and response, to control one's ego, and to avoid conflict. We spoke about the difference between being in the ring with a referee and being involved in true antisocial or asocial violence. He also shared his personal journey towards becoming a professional who protects VIPs and state officials while avoiding conflict, after having quite the rough background in exactly the opposite. Listen into this episode to learn how to change your mindset and perspective through discussion and actual drills, and how to spot pre-attack indicators to avoid violence. It was a true honor to speak with NOUR and to learn from his vast knowledge and experience from such a real-world, war-torn background. This episode just goes to show, no matter what your level of knowledge, you can always learn something if you're open to listening, and I sure did. You can find NOUR on Insta at charliemike.concepts, and check out the link below in the show notes, and then you can contact NOUR direct at charliemike.training@gmail.com, and again click the link below. Thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator, subject matter expert from hownotodie.com.au, and you're listening to my Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast, sponsored by these guys, mystate.com, the ultimate daily formula for optimum hormone health, stress management, energy, and performance. 100% natural and clinically proven ingredients, it provides everything you need to raise your game in a convenient, gut-friendly capsule. Links for my former shows are in the show notes below. Thanks for watching. And we're live. Welcome to the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast, and welcome to my guest all the way from Lebanon, running Charlie Mike Concepts, NOUR ADRA.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I was so worried about pronouncing your name right because I try and pay a bit of respect there. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for organizing the time. And I know it's your first sort of interview. I'm really intrigued to share more about what you do. So you're over there in Lebanon. You've seen a whole bunch of things over your life. You've got we chatted on the phone earlier. I know you've got some really clever training background, but you're running Charlie Mike Concepts. Let's talk about that. Then I'm going to take the listeners back and go through how you got to there. So what do you do with Charlie Mike Concepts? What's the mission there?
Well, the mission is to make an impact, actually. It's to get people more aware, basically, in their whereabouts, when they're going about their day. Situational awareness is key for me, because the way I see things happening today in this age is that we live in a bubble where we feel that we're safe and secure, and most people go about their days thinking nothing's going to happen to them. And I want to change that. I want to get people to be more aware, not paranoid, but more aware of their surroundings, how to read the pre-incident indicators, how to avoid being a prey, avoid being classified as a prey altogether. And there's the leadership part of Charlie Mike Concepts, and the medical part, which is stop the bleed, the most basic, stop the bleed, keep people alive until help gets there, until the EMS get there, or the Red Cross in our country. So basically, that's the purpose of Charlie Mike Concepts.
I really like how you've broken it down there, and almost as a whole, it's all the things that myself and probably quite a few of the guests have spoken about. It's being self-sufficient, being able to look after yourself, being able to look after others, that first aid to keep yourself alive, to keep others alive till someone else gets there. But you started off with the, making an impact and showing people how to avoid being prey. For people like us that are technically trained, that's normal things. It's not so scary, but it seems to be difficult to reach all the people that we really want to try and help. So what's your angle to help out the general population there, to be able to make an impact to them?
Well, actually, people think that their self-defense right is something God-given. I don't want to get into the semantics of it, but we live in a society that is ruled by law, right? And these laws differ from country to country, from culture to culture. Even within like United States, they differ from state to state. I start by telling them what is self-defense in the eyes of the law. So let's say they're packing or they're carrying a knife or any kind of weapon, and they feel a threat. And they'll just say, I'll just shoot him or I'll just stab him. So basically, we get into the conversation of first shooting somebody doesn't stop the threat immediately. They can still actually kill you in those 5 to 8 seconds. So shooting them is not a viable option. The problem happens when you win the fight, because, well, if you lose the fight, if somebody's not trying to kill you, it's your ego that's bruised, it's your violence, it's your it's your pride.
Yes.
But once you win, you have the fights after you win, which is the psychological, the legal, the financial, the social, the technical one, your administrative time. So I start telling people how actually self-defense is a legal term. It's not something we can throw away when we want to protect ourselves or we want to claim self-defense if our ego is bruised and we want to teach somebody a lesson. The main thing is let them learn their lesson on their own time. Avoid, deconflict, basically. So when they get that shock about self-defense not being something very simple and they can just pull out of their pocket whenever they want to kick somebody's ass, they start to understand the relevance of the training, which is to be always situationally aware, use all these techniques and tactics and procedures to avoid being in somebody else's hunting grounds without noticing them.
Yeah, that's very clever. But and you put it so well. You know, in the countries I've lived in, you're unarmed. You're not allowed to carry weapons. You can carry things. You can carry tools. Like a knife is a tool. Over here in Australia, it's not a weapon. You're not allowed to carry firearms. You're not allowed to carry weapons. And I know that, say in your country there, if you have allowed yourself to get into the wrong place at the wrong time, the outcome's very different than, say, someone like me who may just get an argument or maybe able to avoid something. But if the outcome for people around the world and where they are, you just don't want to be in that area because it could be a very bad outcome. So that's probably where we're going to go to now, is that situational awareness. I talk about bodyguarding, and I'm lucky enough to have interviewed a few of the bodyguards for high-end people on the show. And bodyguarding, we don't want to get into a fight with anybody. We want to avoid that. And the Prime Minister's head of protection, he actually said, you know, their job is to run and hide, really. You want to stay away from it. Now, the big man with his family and that, with the ego out there, and we say ego will get you killed, he's got a very different mindset. But he doesn't realize that if he goes down, then his family's at risk. So he should actually be thinking past this ego and thinking about protecting others.
Exactly.
So let's maybe talk about that with the ego. What have you seen sort of male-wise that gets people in trouble there?
Well, you have the ego and then you have the attraction of ladies. Quite a lot of times on my missions, when I'm on CP detail, I haven't run through a lot of trouble with my ego sometimes, but I'm somebody who can subordinate my ego. I like to crush my ego because for me, that's a victory, that's a win. But when it comes to sometimes being approached by the other sex, and that could take away your situational awareness from your principle, from whatever it's happening. And that could be a diversion, actually. Diversion, deception, and disguise that could be employed by whoever wants to attack you or cause you any harm or cause you embarrassment. So yeah, ego and being in control of your thoughts, actually. That's key when you're bodyguarding, because some people get provoked just by your looks, by the way that you walk, especially if you're a big guy, if you're jacked up, you're wearing a shirt, and you're passing through some places with unassuming people. Well, that could get the wrong people provoked, and you got to know how to deconflict and mitigate that without seeming submissive. So that's when you have to balance your ego and pride and your mission, because when you're with a VIP, you represent that VIP. You got to worry about the optics, not just the tactical situation. You represent them, you got to be elegant, you got to be diplomatic, you got to be courteous when you approach people, especially when you're deconflicting, where there's some possibility of conflict and you want to take that away so that you won't have to, grab your VIP and run.
Exactly. Yeah. And as you're saying that, it's not just for the bodyguarding crowd. The people that are listening must be thinking, hang on a sec, that actually applies when I'm with my partner, when I'm with my child, when I'm with my wife and family. Not just in you're in the actual professional realm. Being in control of your thoughts, being aware of what you're presenting out, it's so important, because you can stop things before they happen, just by seeing what's going on, by knowing where you are, and as you said, how you present yourself. Literally, there's no harm in saying, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry I bumped into you. There's no harm in that. No harm, no foul. And it doesn't make you submissive, and it actually can make you impact and change the way their mindset is, can't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like I recall once I got in a traffic accident, and in Lebanon we have particulars of factions and political affiliations, and in general, when you see a car with very tinted glass, it's either some big shot or the government cars. And we have some government cars that are easily identifiable. So he was making a left turn, I was making a right turn. We were both in fault here. So when we had the collision, I stepped down and I immediately extended my arm to shake his hand and say, everybody's okay, everybody in the car's okay. Although he was actually coming very fast. But that was not the time to assign blame. Now is the time to diffuse the situation. And I asked him if there's need to get the insurance people. He said, no, my wife's pregnant. I'm going to the hospital. It's okay. Nothing happened. He was really upset when he got out of the car. He didn't even shake my hand. And I didn't take that as a provocation, because hell, I'm going to control the situation.
Exactly.
I'm not going to let him control the situation. I'm not going to let him dictate what emotions I feel. I'm like, fine, I'm going to be the bigger man. I'm going to win over my ego and pride, and I'm going to diffuse the situation, because that's the strategic win for me, not the tactical win. Like, how can I make him look bad in front of his wife? And it all ended up, and he left, and well, no harm, no foul. All's well that ends well.
Exactly.
So yes, exactly that. Especially when we're carrying firearms, like sometimes you go into places and, well, the situation dictates that you carry a firearm, concealed carry, when you have a license, because that's tricky in Lebanon. Then I become even more attentive on the cars on the road, because that's when I need to deconflict the most. Any car that's driving fast, driving recklessly, I even take the most right side of the highway. I let them pass, because I want to continue having a good day. 5 minutes after that, I'm not going to be thinking about it. I'm going to be listening to the next song. But if I get into a trouble or scuffle with that person, maybe we'll have an accident. Maybe he'll pit maneuver me if I try to brake check him. Then my whole day, week, and maybe year is ruined if we have casualties. So that's the way. That's that gap between stimulus and response. That gap, we need to really widen it, so that we can make the strategic decision rather than the tactical decision. Like, I wanna cut him off. I wanna teach him a lesson, where our ego steps to the front and starts barking orders at us.
That's clever, and it brings me to that thinking about fight and flight, and how the average person that's the wrong terminology. How the untrained person will immediately default to fight or flight, but you're saying if you can have a gap there between if and when that kicks in, and it will kick in if you're not exposed, and get some thinking process and okay, it's this way or that way, not just this way, and I'm now stuck in a bad position and stuck in a bad decision. The fight and flight happens, and when you're exposed to things like we teach, and you've been through that, you now have some files in your head to choose from. You have decisions you've been trained in. Okay, I can make this decision or this decision, and there's likely outcomes from those as well. I'm just thinking down to when I run the How Not to Die courses and talking about walking down the street and you see a bunch of guys in 200 meters away. They haven't seen you yet, but you've seen 5 guys on your side of the street. Cross the road, no problem. You've seen them, they haven't seen you. You could be the big guy and go, oh, I'm strong enough and big enough, but what if they got 10 of their mates around the corner, or what if the guy gets a lucky shot? You've got to be aware of what the likely outcomes of your decisions may well be. And I'm so honored to be able to speak to someone like yourself who does this in a professional role, speaking to it in a everyday person's life. You mentioned females, and that was a great point. I'm going to put it onto children. We discount females so much as males, and we think females are more safe than males. They are often used in other countries, not so much here, but sometimes here in other countries, as the instigator, as the come on, and especially with kids. I mean, in those countries where child trafficking and kidnapping is a risk, the female is such an unknown quantity. You must see a lot of things like that where you are.
Yeah, actually, in my day job, when I run static security, you have some screening to make when it comes to people approaching your location. And the default is my colleagues and sometimes the security forces that are employed by the government to assist us, they discount the females because, well, they're females. And bear in mind, we're a Middle Eastern country, and we still have some reservations when it comes to that subject. So they eyeball the guy who's wearing baggy clothes in the summer because, well, that's where you can conceal. They eyeball the one that's displaying proxemic push. Like if you look at them, they look away. All of these things, they trigger some flags when it comes to males, but when it comes to females, they don't even search their bags.
Wow.
If they're wearing baggy clothes, they don't even bother. It's like there's a filter in your brain. When it comes to males, they get stuck. When it comes to females, they pass through. So that's something that we face on a daily basis. Like, no, females can be the bad guy or the bad woman here because in this day and age, they've got access, they're capable, they got nothing less than a man to be able to perform any act. So yes, we need to screen them just as well as we screen men, and sometimes more, because they might be counting on us letting them through and not even putting them through the sieve, so to speak.
Yeah, through the sieve. You've made such a good point. I remember when I was a police officer here, and I'd heard that a colleague of mine had been taken to hospital, and I found out what had happened, and they were arresting another female and had her at the back of the police van. They use vans here, so it's a fairly high sort of surface. Long story short, the female police officer had discounted the female suspect and hadn't cuffed her, was searching her. So there's a mistake straight away. And the female with the police officer behind her, she's done this. She's looked. So really, she's looking over her shoulder, trying to get an eye on where she was. Next thing, she's hooked her and broken her jaw.
Wow.
exactly like you say, you can't discount what damage a female can do, and
Exactly.
it's not only head in the sand, it's moronic. It's not chauvinistic, it's moronic. This woman now has a broken jaw because this woman took her chance. She didn't take a chance everybody else around her, all the other male cops. She just took this one chance, and she did what she wanted to do, which was cause damage. And that female is abs capable as a male, given the time and opportunity.
Yes, exactly. In the videos that I show people in my situational awareness and threat mitigation tactics training and seminar, there are some videos where I recall a particular one. There's a female dressed in a nice way, a little revealing way at the entrance of a nightclub or a pub. And there's a male that's approaching her in a way that's bothering her. So she stood up facing him, and then, well, she blades and throws a hook, and it's a knockout. And he's a
Wow.
bigger guy, and
Wow.
she's a thin female. Yeah,
Yeah.
you wouldn't assume that such a nice looking creature could actually have that much damage in one blow, but well, she's capable.
Right
So
time, right place.
you cannot discount them. Yeah, they're smart beings, actually. Well, we're living in a world where we have to be concerned about smart beings. It's just not males and females. Smart beings. A dog can attack you.
Exactly. It's funny you say that about the female. I was interviewing the Delta guys. There's three Delta Force guys that I managed to get together on a show every now and then, and it comes down to mindset, and mindsets where it all starts. My personal opinion, and it's proven by evidence in Chris McDougall's book. It might be called Everyday Heroes or something like that. Is the grandma who stops a guy with a knife from hurting her granddaughter. No training in the world, but it was mindset. That person made the choice, no matter what, I'm going to do this. And we're humans. We instinctually know mostly the right things to do. And somewhere in that DNA, we know the right things to do. The parkour is almost an example of doing inhuman things, but the humans can do them. And I think it comes down to mindset. And if you throw on skills on top of that, that's brilliant. And that is my argument when it comes to it, anything like jujitsu, wrestling, boxing. It's literally my argument. It's not the thing that you're doing that matters. It's the mindset and how you apply it. You get a special forces guy learning jujitsu, he's going to be brilliant. You get some person off the street that's got no combat mindset that learns jujitsu, they'll be no good for years until they get very, very skilled.
Yeah, exactly. Mindset is, well, it's what's behind success in general. But since you're talking about mindset, in the street fight, I'd like to bring up one subject, which is using sports techniques to solve real life problems.
Yes.
Because there's one thing that we get used to when we're in the ring or the arena, is that there are rules that both contestants are going to apply by, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're going to abide by. And there's a referee sometimes that can stop the fight. You don't want to kill the other person or maim them or cause them permanent injury, and they don't want to do that to you. And you are matched in weight and capability sometimes, and there are no weapons that you're not aware of. And there's nobody else.
Exactly.
In a street fight, there are no rules. You're not matched. He's got probably weapons. He's not going to tap. And there's probably the +1 rule where there's somebody else that you're not aware of. They're going to step in the fight, and they're opposing force. They're not on your side. And if you want to stop him or her from causing you harm, they don't care. They're going to do whatever it takes to win the fight. Especially if they're a predator, they want to, well, a predator is a businessman. He wants to conduct his business in the safest way possible, and he wants to get the job done as fast as possible. and not be exposed. So if you get into a fight with them, the time factor here is essential for them because they want to get rid of you the fastest to go to their next victim or to get away from that area before the law enforcement get here. So if that gets them if killing you gets them the job done, they might have no problem killing you. While you taking a life is a big thing, they might be used to it.
Mm.
So that's one thing. Their mindset is different than yours. You're used to aggression and violence to train and perhaps solve social aggression. But when it comes to real violence, like asocial or antisocial violence, well, you might not be equipped to deal with that, and that might be their bread and butter. So there's where your mindset can kill you or get you in the hospital or get your family into big trouble, while theirs is the ticket to getting the job done, moving to the next prey. So that's where the mindset is a big issue. And yes, you're right. It is the primary parameter of success when it comes to being in a fight or knowing when to avoid the fight, because mindset as well gets you to know when to not listen to your ego. Well, I can't think of a time when you need to listen to it, but yeah, you get my
Yeah,
point.
I really do. I really do. And we've seen, I mean, you're great with the videos with Instagram and YouTube. And of course, I do the intro so everybody will know where to find you, but we'll go through that at the end as well. You show very relevant situations there, very real world situations. And yeah, ego is just, it's just what we do as males, but it's not what I've ever seen in a professional at all. We're the opposite. We're the quiet guy sitting back, taking it all in, and then if you have to, as a last resort, step in at the right time, rather than, as you say, having no time between action and decision. We're actually thinking it through in some ways. Yeah, it's just so different with a trained individual, which is why it's important what you're doing. So you mentioned a couple of times you actually run courses over there in person where you are.
Yes, I run courses in person, to groups and to one-on-one. It actually includes it's a 20-hour course, between 18 and 20-hour course if I get up to 3 individuals, because that's the maximum that my car can take besides me, because at the end we have drills that we do, and I take them on a drive for like an hour or so. We get into different parts of town. We get into different roads and speeds, and we talk about seatbelt positioning, and we talk about maintaining your reactionary gap while driving, because tactical positioning and reactionary gap are not just two things that you use when you're on foot. You have to have that concept applied to driving as well, because when you're driving, you're inside a weapon, right?
Exactly.
And when the car is stopped, it's a coffin. We'll get to that and why it's a transitional space in my opinion. But when we go for driving, we explore different ways of tactical positioning. When you're about to be stuck in traffic, how to position your car in a way to use magnetism, like when you have two magnets of the same pole, they move away from each other. So how to use that to get cars to be out of your lane and to position yourself in a way to get out of the situation in case somebody's trying to attack you, in case a gunfight breaks out, because, well, it might happen. We had gunfights break out at the gas stations.
Yeah.
Hence my 3 videos of how to get in line at a gas station.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of my training. And the rest is basically a presentation with videos and scenarios and discussions. and actual exercises on how to exit building, how to walk, how to look around, how to use reflections, how to even lock your door if you have multiple locks. And depending on where the position of the most probable threat would be in relation to you, like you have a reactionary gap of 20 seconds from the time the threat can detect you till the time it gets to you. So you need to manage these 20 seconds in a way where you lock your door, get out of there. These kind of things, I get into the details about it. And it's not a 2-hour course where people get an idea. No, they get exercises that will get them to really understand. You know, we in our life, we approach geometry using physics. Exactly. So how to use those two to your advantage to be in a position where you have the tactical advantage and to be discounted as somebody who's not worthy of being a prey because he's too much trouble. Like they say, 2 types of people can spot a thief, another thief, and somebody who's trained like a law enforcement. So when you display situational awareness, when you display behaviors that show that you maintain your reactionary gap and you position yourself always in a tactical way to have the advantage, predators are not stupid. The stupid ones are they're incarcerated. So the smart ones, the ones with experience, they can get away with it. They can read that and they will know that, well, that's somebody I don't want to mess with, because even if I can take them, they're bad for business because I can get exposed, I can get caught, and I'm wasting my time. So I'll find another target of opportunity that is an easier prey. So that's one way of showing people how to avoid being a prey. Another one is how to not display your belongings. Like when you get into a car, most ladies, they have to, or even some men when they have a laptop bag, they just put it on the passenger seat. Well, I've seen people break into the rear glass to get belongings, and they've done it so eloquently and so smoothly, like it was out in 3 seconds. And that's in a traffic jam. It's one of the videos I show and how we discussed. So when you get into a car, first, your key is in your hand. And in whatever left of the 3 fingers, you grab whatever you have and you put it on the floor, in the back, between the 2 seats. Why? Because if somebody wants to access that and they manage to open the door, they're gonna be almost half torso inside the car. So there's your reactionary gap. You have more time to react. And if you are in a car and it's in gear, then you can just press on the gas and they're screwed. Especially when you leave a reactionary gap between you and the vehicle in front of you, and when you have situational awareness, not on your phone, but actually looking at the mirrors, because you're driving a car, you might be in the hunting grounds of a predator. You don't want to be on your phone. You want to be scanning. So these are some of the things that we go into details. And I mentioned the transitional space.
Oh, yes.
Well, transitional space. Transitional space is the space that we have to cross between 2 areas of relative safety.
So safe space, unsafe space, safe space.
Yes, exactly. Or safer than the one in the middle.
Exactly.
Well, when you are getting in the car, you're outside, right? You have mobility. You can maneuver around the car. You can run from a threat, or you can engage them. Once you open the car and you're in that triangle of death, that space between the car, the door, and you're in that triangle, you have no mobility, because the only way the threat is coming from is where you have to. That's your avenue of escape, but it's not an avenue of escape. And until you get in the car, lock the doors, get the engine running and in gear, you're in a coffin. Because a car is a coffin if it's not on and in gear. because when it's in gear, and by the way, I don't use handbrake, once you step on the gas, it's moving, it becomes a weapon. So for me, that is a transitional space from the moment you open the car until it's moving or ready to move with the pedal on. That's a transitional space. So I need to cross that space, and as fast as possible, I need to spend as little time as possible and as necessary in that space. Hence, when you get into a car, you're primed for one thing: lock the door, engine on and in gear. You don't follow with anything else. You don't put your phone on charge. You don't connect CarPlay. You don't fix stuff, because the priority is that you change that lump of steel from a coffin to a weapon.
Exactly. And
right?
it's funny you say that for two reasons. One, you've probably checked out the area first. You checked out cars beside you, who's around, so that transitional space you made as safe as possible by being aware. You wouldn't go into that slightly unsafe space without being assured that you're happy. But second, I actually had a male come to me because of that exact situation. For 50 years of his life, he had avoided fights. He's a political spin doctor, very great at talking, Buddhist, all the things, right? But that one person who he knew, a colleague that wanted to have argument, got him in that transitional space, and he came to seek out a special forces guy to teach him how to fight, which he did not want to do, because he realized in that time he had no control of what was going on, because he was stuck in that little triangle of death that you speak about, Noah. It was exactly that situation you talk of.
Yeah, ambushes are used because they work. Right?
Exactly.
So you wanna reduce the opportunity of a predator to ambush you, either by spotting them or by not allowing yourself to be in a space that's ambush prone or ideal for ambush. Like you park your car backwards. You take the time to park your car backwards. We don't find time. We allocate time. Like you don't find time by mistake once you're stepping out of the elevator, right? You don't find 30 minutes on the floor by your car. You allocate time.
Yep.
So you plan ahead that you might want to circle the block 3 or 4 times before you find a suitable spot. You park your car backwards if you're parking in a parking lot. For example, when I'm going to see my parents, they live in a different area. I collect some goods on the road, and I visit bakeries, and I pick the bakeries where I can park backwards.
Yeah.
And these are the ones that have less traffic. They're a little more expensive. But for me, if I pay like 10 more cents and I get to park backwards and get out of there, I position my car tactically in a way that just the second I get in, my wheels are steered toward the escape route.
Yeah.
The second I get in, I'm in a weapon, not a coffin. So I spend 10 more cents and I move earlier, so that whenever I'm in a position where I can choose, I choose to be in a tactical advantage because I plan ahead. So proper planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance.
Thank you for saying
that's what people
that.
don't want to do. They just want to get on with their life. Well, yeah, you can, but you're leaving it to chance.
Now, that's perfect segue into summing up what you're doing there, and then we're going to go into how you got to this position. Most people listening that are untrained in this world would think, oh my God, he walks around thinking, there's going to be a bazooka. I associate bazookas in Lebanon from my school days. Be a bazooka around the corner, and a whole bunch of guys with AKs are going to kidnap him. I want to put out there that these little things, like getting into your car with the keys in your hand in the right time and locking the door, all these things are very normal to do, very simple to do, and then you can actually be more at ease, can't you, rather than being on edge?
Yes, exactly. Like when you get into a car, like getting into a rental car, for example, when you get a rental car, well, you have to train yourself so you have the muscle memory of getting in, locking the door, and getting the key into the ignition and getting the car in gear, because these are the three most important things that this is your primary, that's your objective when you get into the car, nothing else. So you have to train on that. So you have to plan on allocating the time to train on that, because once you get that covered, then you know that whatever happens, at least that transitional space, it's reduced to the minimum. And for example, seatbelt. When you're moving at high speed or there's a risk of collision, you have the seatbelt like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The proper way. But when I move into a smaller street where there's less risk of collision and there's reduced speed, I get it under my armpit. Because if I have to exit the car, well, if I'm in a slow moving traffic, then I probably cannot run away with the car. So I have to exit, right?
Yep.
And if I have to exit quickly and I unbuckle the seatbelt and the seatbelt is running over my shoulder, I have to clear my arm. But if it's under my armpit, I don't care. I can just get out. Once I unbuckle the seatbelt, there's nothing restraining me anymore. And well, they say gunfights are won in millimeters and milliseconds. Well, a fraction of a second counts when there's something threatening you.
Exactly.
Even if you want to deal with a threat that's on your right side or on your 4 o'clock, like somebody's breaking into your car and they want to get your gear or your bag that's on the floor between the two seats. If you have a seatbelt over your shoulder, it's gonna lock because of its purpose is to lock at when you pull at it, right?
Yep.
Because you're imitating an accident. But
Yep.
if it's underneath, then you can move freely. You can move to your right. You can engage better. So when you run the risk of somebody breaking into the car and you have to do that, well, seatbelts go under the armpit. Now, you probably guys in the special forces have a different reason for that, because you have your weapons and your engagement is, it requires of you different tactics. But that's one of the ways where you can have better mobility inside the car if you cannot get exit from the car. So that's something I tell people to be aware of and to actually train. Like now it's like breath work for me. I get in the car sometimes, I'm distracted, and once I move, I remember that I haven't locked the door. So I look and I have locked the door. My car doesn't lock automatically. It's an old model. So it became like breath work. When I get into a smaller street, reduced speed, seatbelt goes under the armpit, it becomes like just like breath work. You don't think about it anymore.
Exactly. And summing up what you've said is controlling the controllables is so important. They're within our control. I gave the example of cross the road. When you see a bunch of guys that may not be bad guys, you can control that. What I'd like to ask you now, because you've really painted a good picture of what you do at Charlie Mike Concepts, is how did you go from a boy in Lebanon to a professional close protection operator and it's your static protection? How did you learn these skills? How did you get to this place of life, Noah?
Well, I'm somebody with a hot temper, very hot temper. That's who I am, right? Now it's different because well, as we mature and as we get a little wiser and we get exposed, we learn what matters and what doesn't matter. But I used to get in a lot of fights when I was a little boy and a teenager. And at some point, I realized if I have to continue that path, I'm going to jail, that's for sure.
Wow.
And I didn't want to go to jail. Obviously, nobody likes that. So I had to find a way to avoid. So I had to become better using my tongue. I had to be better with communicating. I didn't have trouble winning fights, but I realized that, well, the problem is after you win the fight. And in Lebanon, as I mentioned before, we have affiliations and factions with political parties. And even if you win a fight and you beat the shit out of somebody, then you have to be looking over your shoulder because, well, his political party is going to come after you. And even if you're in the right and you're acting in self-defense and you have the law on your side, you can be incarcerated for life because, well, that's the reality in Lebanon. The rule of law is transactional. It's not actually something you can rely on.
That sounds almost mafia-like as comparison to for a USA. Same thing. Your actions have consequences.
Yeah, even if you're in the right.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I found the best way is to avoid the conflict altogether. And when you have something running in the back of your mind, you grab every chance to work on it, perfect it. And I stopped getting into fight. I started subordinating my ego. I started being the bigger man. And there's a way that you can talk people out of trouble if you're assertive enough, know how to use words, you display the proper body language, the kinesics. And if you look for a win-win situation, that's probably the best way to diffuse, even if you have to let go of some of your pride, because at the end of the day, even the opposing force, they got something to lose. So when you look for a win-win, that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
And avoid being there in the first place. Like you can't go in a very bad part of town and go at 3 o'clock when everybody's sniffing drugs and they're out of money and they're drunk and expect not to get into trouble. Well, you avoid the places and the people, and then you manage the situation in a way according to your experience and knowledge and training. And that's when file folders in the head and exposing yourself to scenarios is important, because then your OODA loop is running way faster than the other person.
Yeah, absolutely. And what training did you do for the roles that you're currently now in?
Well, the big training is going to running South Africa.
Ronan,
for their close protection in hostile environment. Yeah, that was one of the best experiences in my life.
Yeah,
it's like the people that are there, they're very adamant on filtering the students. Like the only people that get through are the people that have the skills and they have the mindset. Because even if you're skilled but you don't have the mindset, you're not gonna get through. You're not gonna pass the exams. You're not gonna pass their mental exams. And even if you're strong, if you're tough, if you have the skills and mindset, but you lack the control, they're not gonna endorse you. They say, sorry, you cannot represent us, because bodyguarding is representing the VIP. And it's the tactical component and the medical component as well. It's like if your client is having some health problems and you're aware of his health problems, you can help them. But if you're oblivious to the fact that he's allergic to peanuts and you go to a party and the food has peanuts and he ends up having an anaphylactic reaction, then it's on you.
Yeah.
You can't say, I didn't know. Well, you didn't do your exercise properly. So that's one of the biggest trainings that I've had in my life. And when I came back here and I joined the diplomatic mission where I currently work, we've had some training with the Lebanese Special Forces in CQB and in different areas that I don't want to get into right now.
Of course.
So basically, the training is with Ronin, and I read a lot. And I read a lot for people that are ex-veterans, because SEALs, SAS, the unit Delta, one book goes to mind is The Mission, the Man, and Me. That's a great book that I've read like more than 3 times. Pete Blabber, I believe. And there's definitely the books of Joko, extreme ownership, dichotomy of leadership, and the leadership strategy and tactics.
Yep.
And I've just told you that I've recently started reading The Resilience Shield for Dr. Dan Prong.
Yes, yes,
That's a very interesting book. Yeah, that's a very interesting book. And one thing to mention is that I graduated as a civil engineer.
Yes, wow.
And I'm a photographer and a personal trainer as well. Sports medicine, sports nutrition, just because I find things that I'm interested in, and I go all the way to really learn them, to be able to practice them. So there was a time when assassination started in Lebanon with VVIEDs, and there was not much work to be done in the contracting field where I was employed. So I started reading army manuals about Afghanistan and Iraq, where you have similar theaters of operations like Lebanon, Middle East. And the main focus was how to spot and avoid getting attacked by VBIED, and how to spot surveillance. And then I combined a manual about counter-IED that gets surveillance, types of IEDs, indicators, this whole thing. That's when my interest peaked about security.
Yep.
And then I've wanted to join the French Foreign Legion for a while, their 2nd Parachute Regiment. And I was really getting ready to leave. And then something happened in the family. I realized that's no longer a viable option. So I was like, what's next? What's the alternative? And I saw the world moving into a more chaotic and violent kind of word. So I was like, yes, if I cannot get military training, maybe I can get close protection training, because I need to protect myself and my family and those close to me. So I started looking for schools, and that's when I found RON in South Africa.
Yeah.
And I went there, and it was one of the best experiences. I graduated as an independent operator. A big hi to Tim and all the instructors there.
Awesome.
And I plan on going back there for their medic course when I can. It's a 6-week medic course. Track 5, I think.
Ronan's very highly regarded for the listeners and viewers in that world. And what you must have seen is it's beautiful to see you hear your evolution. From young man, literally with a hot temper, to becoming a professional. And as you expose to those professionals, they're not the guys that are beating their chest. They're not the guys with hot tempers. They're the controlled aggression, and they're that relatively quiet professional. And it would have been really nice to mentor and have that shown to you to emulate and then get to the position you're in now. So it's really really good to see to hear about that journey of yours as well.
Thank you. The ultimate weapon is the mind. You can have all the weapons in the world, and if you cannot use that 5 centimeters between your ears and your scalp, they're not going to do you much good. And well, that's what sets you guys apart from the rest. Your special forces training is on your mindset and your ability to think, like thinkers before door kickers. So growing up in Lebanon in the civil war, you see a lot of trouble, you see a lot of atrocities, you see a lot of death, a lot of violence, and then you get inoculated, like you no longer feel
desensitized.
Exactly, you're desensitized to violence, and you can either go on being more violent, or you can start to look at it for what it is. Violence is a tool, actually. It's like it's like a stone, it's like a knife.
Yeah.
So if you use it in the right place, you can defend yourself and save yourself. And if you use it in the wrong place, you can inflict harm on others unlawfully, since we're governed by laws.
Yeah.
So that's when I realized you have to be good at violence. You have to be able to spot violence before it happens, see the pre-attack and pre-incident indicators, and be good at communication, because that saves you a lot of trouble.
And communication is more than just talking. Communication is, as you're aware of, and it's really just for the listeners again, is so many different things. It's reading body language of what someone's showing you. That's communication. Communication could be you doing different movements, different postures, could be engaging verbally. But Sean's show is just coming out today and tomorrow. Sean Grogan, a police officer, literally teaches courses on that, on the pre-fight indicators and on the communication. And it really can save your life, and it can make your life a lot easier, as you said near the start of this interview. 5 minutes down the road, you're changing radio stations, and the other guy's probably still steaming about being in a hurry or whatever he's doing with his road rage. Look, it's been absolutely brilliant speaking to you. It's an honor to speak to any guest, and I am often saying that I interview the best people in the world at what they do. So to have you all the way from where you are in Lebanon, speaking to the viewers and listeners about what you do and sharing some wisdom. As always, I say, if just one thing that we've said in this has helped somebody else, then we've done our job. And I'm sure we have here.
Exactly. Yes.
You started off with your mission is to have an impact, to make an impact. From where you started as a hot-tempered young man in a war-torn country, it's really I'm not blowing smoke. It's really refreshing to see, and it's an honor to be able to speak with you and share that with others.
It's an honor to be here.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's been great. Now,
thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. Now, it is in the intro, but people at this stage, where's the best place to find out more about you and get on your training courses and to see more of what you do?
It's Charlie Mike Concepts on Instagram. I have it on YouTube as well and TikTok, but TikTok is banning the videos and removing the videos where there's aggression and violence, and even for educational purposes. And YouTube is a little tricky because sometimes when you can post things on Instagram, and when you post them on YouTube, you get a strike, you get a ban. So basically, it's Instagram. That's where my most of my footage and work is done.
Yep.
I'm going to be opening a Telegram channel because there's no restrictions there. So I'm going to be soon doing everything on Instagram and on Telegram, because Telegram is more flexible. And people can reach me on Instagram or on WhatsApp, because I have the contacts, or at the email, which is as well charliemiketraining.com, and there will be Charlie Mike Concepts, at gmail.com, and charliemikeconcepts@gmail.com. Or they can just DM me on Instagram. Basically, I'm giving one-on-one or group in-person training in Lebanon, in Beirut, anywhere in Lebanon. And I'm working on a platform to deliver it online. I just have to find a way to get people to see me while I'm driving, when I'm driving, or to do the drills that we need to do, the actual drills, because I don't want it to be a PowerPoint presentation. The discussion to change their mindset, to change their perspective, and the actual drills that we do is what makes it interesting and real life. So I still have to find a way to incorporate that into online training, and then I'm going to be launching that as well.
I'm excited to watch that progress, and your content for the listeners is absolutely brilliant. You know, that's how we connected, and I've connected with so many people through this space of the interwebs and Instagram, and it's, you just reach out to the right people, and so many of us are happy to share the information and knowledge transfer, as the SEALs say. So again, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. I'll hit pause and we'll have a chat, but it's just been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's an honor to be there. Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Hi, thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former Special Forces operator, and check out my new project for 2023 at hownottodie.com.au, where I've combined all my Special Forces training and police officer experience to help others. Thanks for watching.